Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to the Facebook Live Q&A on January the 20th, 2021. Today is the day that we have the presidential inauguration. So January 20th, every 4 years here in the US is a pretty important day. So welcome everyone. Today I'm joined with our normal panel. We actually have almost like the full house on our panel. We have Louise, who is an author and a spiritual teacher. Welcome, Louise. Caesar, who is a spiritual teacher and a channel and a medium. Welcome, Caesar. And we have Kelly, who's our Qigong teacher, one and only, and a spiritual teacher. Thank you, Kelly, for joining us. And we have Travis back, our musician and spiritual teacher here. Welcome, Travis. And of course, our incredible Eileen that's going to help us stay very streamlined, right? Good evening, Eileen. So Caesar, right before we launched into the Facebook Live, you were going to give an update on your van, which we talked about in the last Facebook Live. So I want you to give an update and I'll copy and paste something that I want y'all to take a look at. Thank you.
Okay, so a few days ago, I was on a phone conversation. Well, I'll just bring everybody up to speed. My van was stolen a couple weeks ago and advanced approximately 10 days or so. I was talking on the phone with one of my friends, and he asked if I had the van back, and I said not yet. And I said, but it feels good to have it back. And no sooner than I would say an hour had passed, got a call from the detective asking me if I had got the call yet, and I said no. And he said, well, your van's been recovered. And I went and picked up my van. So the van did wind back up in my driveway. It's less tools and some material things, but I was grateful for what I did get back. They took some engine parts or whatnot, but I'm extremely grateful to have had that happen. The experience was pretty cool to say, because I did figure out where the point of attraction was, and Poonam and I was discussing that, and it was because previously I mentioned earlier that I'd put the van up for sale about a couple weeks prior. So, and I really wasn't that interested in selling it. I'm just not a big fan of a particular manufacturer. And so I was going to go with, something that I was more in liking to. And I really didn't care if I sold it or not, but I believe that's probably where the alignment came in. Because I was just a little more susceptible to another manufacturer. And but she wound back up, and again, I was overwhelmed when I got the news. And the cool thing is I never doubted I was going to get the van back. Something in the back of my mind told me that was going to happen. I just felt it. I'm only a couple miles outside of Detroit, so car thefts around here are frequent, and I thought I did everything right, to keep my vehicle protected with an alarm and whatnot, and somehow they got it, and life is still good, and I'm grateful. But I never wavered. I didn't spend hardly any time talking about the absence of the van. Only a few people really knew, because I didn't want to be on the other end of the stick. I didn't want to be on the void of not having the vehicle. I wanted to stay focused on having it and having it come back without giving too much attention to the absence or the occurrence, the situation. Because as long as you're focused on what you don't have or what came up missing, as we know, the universe is just going to offer more of that, which is more absence of the van. So I tried to keep that in play, and things worked out beautiful, and I'm extremely grateful.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being a demonstration of what does acceptance look like? Acceptance of the unacceptable.
And I didn't allow it to steal my peace, and that's a really good example there. Because had I been worried and upset or angry, that were just going to be days marked off that that weren't enjoyable, and all for no reason. They say 95% of what we worry about doesn't happen anyways, because the mind takes us to the worst possible scenario when you are concerned or worried about something as it is. So it was good validation for me that it showed back up. And if it didn't show back up, it is what it is. Life goes on. So, I learned something through it, about the law of attraction, and every day is a lesson. And I'm glad I had the opportunity to practice on something a little bigger, for acceptance, that is. So feels good.
Thank you for the update, Caesar.
Thank you.
It. So I posted a passage from A New Earth about resentment as the emotion that goes with complaining and the mental labeling of people. Somewhere in here, it says we judge their lack of integrity, what they're doing, what they did in the past, what they said, what they failed to do. So a member posted this, and then they said, sometimes the fault that you perceive in another isn't even there. It is a total misinterpretation, projected by a mind conditioned to see enemies and to make itself right or superior. And on the Facebook page, what they asked was, then how do we not judge cruelty? How do we not judge, how do we not act upon like a child being harmed or animal being harmed, right? So I want you to read that passage and know the context of the passage for a couple of minutes, and then let me know who's finished first and they can start.
Hello.
You ready?
Sure.
Go ahead. Why would you think that, what would be the action if a person saw cruelty being done to a child? What is the right action when you read that passage?
The right action would be to act or not really get involved and not so much dismiss it, but when you see an act of cruelty, say to a child, or an animal, or a child is the worst case scenario, you have to first approach it with compassion. Don't let it tip the scale to where it angers you, because then every decision you make in trying to help is gonna come out of that place if you're angry. So as Travis always says, attack it with love and compassion. And if there's something you can do in the moment to combat or help, then that's what you do. But I believe it must be done with compassion. Hate doesn't fuel out hate. Only love can do that, Martin Luther King says. So I believe 100% that you have to go about it in a compassionate way, and understanding, and perhaps, think about the outcome in how whatever you're going to do is going to make a difference, how it will be beneficial to the ones who need it. I would just say attack everything with compassion and love, no matter what you do. If it's done through the eyes of compassion and love, I think you're on the right path.
And compassion and love don't arise without the alignment with inner beingness. So work on your alignment first. Work on your presence power so that unconsciousness does not draw you to reactivity, right? Thank you, Caesar. Louise, did you want to say something about the passage?
Yeah, I think one of the things to keep in mind is that just because we're doing this type of work doesn't mean that we get angry or that, we see things that aren't right, and we, you know, are oblivious to things or numb to what's going on. So there are things that, you know, when you do see a child being abused, or, you know, things, an animal being abused, that there is action, there can be action to take. And a lot of it is based on how much we are centered and aligned with our true self, because otherwise we react and we overthink things and we create a bigger problem than what we really have. And so I feel like, you know, anything that we do, any action that we take, if we do that with when we're aligned, then we are able to take, I think, the best action possible for something like this.
So you're saying the same, almost like what Caesar said, be in alignment first.
Right.
Have your presence power.
Because otherwise we overreact and we create this whole story in our head and get kind of crazy. And so it's, when you're not, and that's what happens when you're not in alignment. When you're in alignment, you're able to act appropriately rather than react.
I just posted, I think yesterday or today, yesterday maybe, a post where it said, where Eckhart says, all life situations are neutral. The facts of the situation are always neutral. We add, like you're saying, Louise, we add the narrative, and that's when the polarity of this is bad and this is good comes, right?
Right. And I think even in one of his, yes, and even in one of his talks, he said, you know, you can even like present yourself in court where you're just speaking the facts. You know, you don't have to have all this stuff going on. And so I think that sometimes we think, oh, because, you know, I'm spiritual, or, you know, I'm on this path or whatever, that we don't get angry at things and we don't see, you know, injustice, or we don't go to court for something, you know, but there's a way of handling that when, you know, in a much productive way when we're aligned versus when we overreact and we create more of a problem than there really is.
Perfect. Thank you, Louise. Travis, did you want to say something about the passage? And I'm going to read it. Read it to myself, but go ahead. Thank you. I think you're on mute.
You're on mute.
There we go. Now it's good, right? Okay. Sorry, a little rusty. Yeah. Well, for one, I love this because it really speaks to me and things that I'm working with. Because I find myself in situations where I do just this. It's usually on a subtle level with things that are very trivial, which I'm grateful for. Things that don't seem like that big of a deal, but it's enough to make me feel less heavenly and a little bit more funky. And I don't like that. I want my gift to the world to be as heavenly a frequency as I can sustain. So, so I notice myself doing this, you know, as we all do until we don't. But I think so. Fault finding. We have to create a mental separation from whatever it is that we're finding fault in, and it's implied that we're seeing who or whatever we find fault in from a superior vantage point. and not only that, we're not accepting of or understanding of the situation that that person, right, they're doing the best they can with the degree of consciousness that they have. And then we're identifying this action that comes out of unconsciousness when people act in ways that are unkind or not considerate. When they do that, if they only knew better, they surely would do better. So it's a matter of having that grace of being able, I'm happier when I'm able to be in that space within myself where I'm able to offer up that space and that grace and that understanding. And like Eckhart says right in the middle of this statement, that we make it into their identity, the unconsciousness. We equate unconsciousness to who that person is. When if we look at ourselves, think of the times that we've been unconscious. That's not who we are. And so I think when we can see it in ourselves, it makes it that much easier to see it and forgive it, overlook it, as Eckhart puts it in this statement, is the same as forgiveness in others. And so it's such a wonderful treat to ourselves. It's a gift to ourselves to be able to be in that space, because we instantly start to feel that peace and that ease and that space. You know, the pollution or the trouble, it affects us first, and then it ripples out into the world. And it only comes from our unconsciousness, from our misunderstanding. So isn't it funny that in our unconsciousness, we equate unconsciousness with another's identity. So now they're unconsciousness, now we've reacted and we're unconscious, and what a mess it's becoming. So it's a wonderful thing when these things happen, because really what it is it's an opportunity for us to grow into our spiritual maturity, our deeper self, our more refined sense of who we are, that is more gracious and more understanding. Because I know for myself, that's what I want to be able to be and offer, because there isn't a person in the world that doesn't deserve that. And so it doesn't mean that if you see something going on, someone harming another, that you know, the more present or conscious or alive we are, the more able we'll be to respond appropriately to the unique situation that's arisen, and in a loving and compassionate way. So there's that part of things, if you see somebody doing a wrongdoing. But as far as the attitudes we take toward that, we don't have to place ourselves in a position of moral superiority over somebody else. We can still be loving, we can still be compassionate, we can still welcome them into our heart. We might need to protect somebody else from them, or whatever the situation may be, but it is all out of love. Yeah. So I'm grateful to read this, because, like I said, it touches on something that I feel like I've been working within myself over the past couple of days. So I'm grateful.
Synchronicity.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have an example of where he says sometimes the fault that you perceive in another isn't even there? It is a total misinterpretation, a projection by a mind conditioned to see enemies and to make itself right or superior. So what would be an example of that? That I am judging somebody
Right.
about a fault that they have, but the fault is actually in me.
Right. Well, I'm trying to, I mean, I'm not sure that I want to share my personal situation that I'm working on right now. But I don't know, but it does feel somewhat, you know, I don't really know where the line is in what I'm working with at the moment, between what I'm projecting, which I feel pretty confident there is some of that, and then there's also some of you know, the other person kind of maybe being overrun by unconsciousness in some ways as well. I think it's a mixture of the both for me. So let me think for a moment and see if I can think of, just an example without making my situation the example. Well, I guess, I can't help but to use what I'm going through because it's just what's right there for me. But, I think that oftentimes, if we have traumas, childhood traumas, uncomfortable or very challenging things that come up when we're younger, it's going to come out of those things oftentimes. So someone's behaving in a way that isn't really all that unconscious or out of line or disrespectful or inconsiderate in any way, but because we're hypersensitive to being treated a certain way, we might project that onto somebody else. Does that answer that at all? It's like something that, so if we are projecting, it's going to be something from the baggage that we're carrying around that we haven't yet worked out and let go of, that we're projecting onto the other. And so I think with that, we can look at the things that we find unacceptable in others, unacceptable in ourselves. Those are the things we need to look at and work on so that we can offer ourselves and others that space. But I guess that's the best I can do with that one in the moment.
Thank you, Travis.
Mm-hmm.
I can give a real example. I've talked about it before on the Facebook Live. I used to have a lot of resentment for my mom's physical and verbal abuse, right? But I noticed that even if, like in a work situation, if your manager talks in a slightly, like in corporate America, it's not like everybody's going to be very sweet and talk, hi, honey, hi, sweetie. Their consciousness is going to vary depending on the stressors of the day, right? So they may use a slightly more aggressive tone. Put immunity to do that, right? And the reactivity that'll come up is not because of what they said, but because of the resentment of the past. So the fault is not with the manager. We'd say, oh, my manager is so bad. And then we'd go tell, if he were unconscious, we'd go tell 10 other people about how my manager treated me in that situation, right? But it had nothing to do with the manager. It had to do with my resentment. So I need to own my resentment. And that's why he is so beautifully saying, let go of all resentments, all grievances, all labeling, right? And that'll clear all the past memories of all this resentment and grievance. We won't be reactive about these things anymore, right? So, and I've told everyone that story of what final event in 2005 liberated me out of that, right? But I can see that now that, so this is where the past is helpful, is you kind of know why you co-created the next few events in your, as you progress, right? Look at your childhood, look at all the karmic accumulation of your childhood, and move forward and see how each of those events were co-created by you, by me. I know I co-created those events. Any roughness, any abuse, any, like if I had loss of money, why did I have that loss of money? I co-created each and every event. And so, I mean, there is so much peace about that is the liberation of the past, right? If I co-created it, then the person that needs to change is me, right? My vibrational frequency. And that's all there is to it. So thank you. Beautiful, Travis. Welcome back to Louise and you. I think George has joined us. Good evening, George. Kelly, did you want to say something about that passage? It's a beautiful learning lesson, right? A new artist.
Well, everything's a projection until you still your mind, until you understand how to step into observation. Stillness is the only way to actually move through things, which is why we have moments of revelation and understanding through feeling. There's a lot that is said in this passage, some of which I kind of agree with. Most of it I agree with. I agree with the aspect of projection. Absolutely. The thing is, though, is that when you align with your heart space and when you stop projecting and when you still your mind, you develop a completely different capacity for discernment and understanding. You do stop interacting and co-creating out of fear and judgment and resentment. That's absolutely true. However, when there are two people involved in a situation, you know, it takes two to tango. You gotta stand up for being emotionally responsible. Being emotionally responsible personally in your personal situation is one thing, but you know, walking around, going through life, not calling people on their lack of emotional responsibility is the flip side of this. When we understand that there is a much deeper level of responsibility and ability to be emotionally present possible, it is very important for us to lead by example. And when we understand, you know, and of course, I mean, when we realize this, you know, the forgiveness is always there. Like you realize that this is what you're doing to yourself, and then you go, oh my God, the other person is completely unconscious, and it's just like, you know. So the flip side of that is also standing up for your own space and emotional responsibility. I've had numerous employers who have been incapable of being emotionally responsible. And just the simple fact of holding my space against their projections has caused them to understand that I do not tolerate emotional irresponsibility, and I do not tolerate their projections in my direction. So while I do agree with this passage, I feel the most important part of this is to understand projection, because being emotionally responsible is about stopping projection, stopping the mental analysis and the judgment. And yes, the whole concept of superiority plays a big role, because our egos love it. Our egos love leverage. Our egos love being able to, you know, turn the screws to someone, because that's what they feed off of. That's what ego and shadow feeds off of. And our reptilian defense mechanisms need that kind of energy. It's essential for them to survive. So when you actually still your mind and learn how to connect with your heart, and not only still your mind, but also still the emotional responses and the projections, the impact of those projections in your body, that's when you create a space of alignment. And that's when people will register that you no longer tolerate their projections. And this is something that really teaches people about stillness. When you understand how to align with your heart, and the stillness that stepping back into observation actually creates in the perspective of righteous discernment, not being angry, not being judgmental, not being fearful, not being resentful, but understanding the reality of not projecting mentally or analyzing a situation, but feeling and understanding how unconscious you've been, because, you know, and as you see it in yourself, you can see it in others. But when you step inside and into alignment, you realize that there can be no space in your world for cruelty of any kind, or judgment of any kind, or fear of any kind. Even though, you know, learning experiences will cause us to be challenged and to step in and out of those spaces. But the more you realize that fear is all based on projection, and you stop yourself and step into observation and align with your heart, and you build more and more stillness inside of you, you realize that the concept of integrity changes dramatically, because it's about understanding the level of unconsciousness that you're dealing with in yourself and also whoever you are interacting with. So great passage. There's a lot in there. There's a lot to digest in that passage. But I feel the key has a lot to do with the concept of projection. You know, the other words before that, they're important points of reference for understanding concepts, but the concept of projection is really, really key here.
Thank you, Kelly. And there's not enough of conscious human beings on this earth to absolve all the unconsciousness. So we can be looking at there is ISIS situation, and there's this war going on, and there's this North Korea going on, and there's cruelty in China, and how much can be solved, right? So we can do little things in our own space.
Yep.
Alignment is it. Thank you, Kelly, for that feedback. Beautiful. Eileen, did you want to say something about the passage or your insights?
The only thing that I was going to say, but I think Travis might have mentioned it, was just being truly in the present moment. And it makes me think of that quote that I like. I'm trying to think of who the person is that says it. But it's like there's that space in between stimulus and response. And it's like you have that space, that choice to be in that present moment to create a response out of, you know, love and kindness and compassion, and not a reaction. And so I think that it really does come down to presence, because it's not that you're going to like whatever it is that's happening, or you're going to, you know, be angered or whatever. It's just that you're going to be making a conscious decision, and the decision will be what's right if it's done out of presence and not out of, you know, reaction to what's being seen or what's being done.
Stephen Covey, the seven.
Well, I was going to say that, but I think he actually quotes somebody else when he says it. But yes, Stephen Covey does say that. But I was trying to think of who the original person was. But yes, he does talk about that all the time.
7 Habits of Highly Effective People,
yes.
Or something like that, right?
7 Habits of Highly Effective People, yes. I'm trained fully in that and have been teaching it for 10 years. So. And
he says between stimulus and response, there's a gap, right?
Yeah.
Dwell in the gap.
Okay, Gracie just said it. It's Viktor Frankl. I knew, I just couldn't get the name to come out. But yes.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Gracie.
Stephen Covey quotes him, yes.
And the gap is presence, power. So that's why Eckhart always says, and I discussed this in group meditation, there's a talk where he talks about inviting presence. And he says, don't use one little section of your day and do meditation. Make presence as an everyday thing, right? As you're pouring tea, make it presence oriented. Because when the world impinges upon us, all this presence power that we built up is what's going to, the deeply rooted in presence is what is going to help us, right? When we see the cruelty towards that animal happening, then what are we going to do? Like call somebody, or it's not like we are going to take something and go hit that person, right? That would be reaction. So it seems like, okay, we have this person talking about there's cruelty here, cruelty towards animals. There's a question, so let me address this question. So Kimberly saying, often thinking, there's a skill missing here, circumvents taking things personally, and then in children explaining what a skillful response might look like, and then actively asking how they think they might feel when they decide to try the new skill, and what did it feel like inside to respond before they learn the skill, the whole behavior. So I think this is more of a solution than a question. Right, Ali? It's more a solution, right, of what we're discussing. It's not a question.
I was trying to read what she wrote at the same time you were talking, so I wasn't fully comprehending it until you read it.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Kimberly. Beautiful. So what came to my mind when Kelly was talking was, if a person is saying there's cruelty towards animals, there's cruelty towards children, or cruelty towards me, then how do I remove all this? Am I going to judge the cruelty, right? So how does, so what came to my mind was Eckhart's sentence, how you do what you do is more important, how you do is much more important than what you do, right? So I want each one of you to explain, what does he mean by how you do? And how is that going to solve all the cruelty and the unconsciousness on this planet? Because I know the answer to the how you do is the answer to all the cruelty and cruelty towards animals and cruelty towards children or whatever it may be. So Luis, you want to get started on why does Eckhart say how you do is more important than what you do? The antidote to all the cruelty in the world. Thank you.
Yes. So I think what that refers to me, what that means to me is that it's on an individual level that we make changes. And so it's not so much that, like, you know, you go out and you, although these things might be okay, like raise money or, you know, picket or whatever it might be, but it's more about what you are doing personally with yourself is how I'm taking it, how it will eventually spread out to the world. So it's more about the quality of how you're living versus all the things that you're doing. And that quality of your living will in turn help what you are doing. So I think it always is boiled down to, again, you know, being grounded or aligned with yourself. And the more that you do that on an everyday basis, then that is what's going to create, you know, what you do. But that's the most important thing, is doing for yourself so that you can give to others. That's how I took it.
Thank you, Louise. I'll see if something comes up. Travis, did you want to say something about how you do is more important than what you do?
Sure.
So your music and everything is really not that important. How you do.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, well, for me, you know, there's again, as a lover of music and a lover of everything, I look at everything as frequencies, as wavelengths that they help to, you know, create and generate and perpetuate a certain kind of vibe, a certain that you feel. And so everything that we do is endowed with that. it's endowed with the motivation, the intention, the ideas, the feelings behind what we do. It pours into everything that we do. So I know it's easy to look at the kind of gross, dense material reality as more real because it appears so solid. But to me, the energetic, the realm of wavelengths and frequencies, which are not, you know, we can't really see with the naked eye. We can hear some of them, a small range of them, but there's vast range of frequency, much more that the ear cannot hear than it can. The ear hears a very small range of frequency, but at least gives you a sense that there's something there that you can't see. It's more subtle. And so it's funny to think perhaps that what is more subtle is actually more real than what's less subtle. So, and then to me, there's that which is most subtle, which is you could call that stillness, right? There's nothing more subtle than that. There's nothing more pristine than that. So if we can be in that space of stillness in what we do, in what we say, that's peace, right? Because so much of life, so much of our attention is attracted to movement. We see objects and things. These, even if they appear static, we know that they're not. There is no object in space that's static, even if it appears to be. It's in a state of flux. So there's no real, and so if you think about, you know, peace, and peace is nothing's moving anymore. There's stillness there. That is peace, not in the sense of just in like a literal sense. And so if we can be, so you can look at three levels. There's matter would be one. This is just a way to look at it. It's not the way to look at it, but you could look at it as a kind of three levels of reality or subtlety. Is the gross, dense material realm. Even more subtle than that is energy and frequency wavelengths. And then even more subtle than that is what you could call consciousness or pure consciousness or stillness or the absolute reality, because it is not subject to change. It's changeless, it's immutable, it's utterly reliable. It's constant. It's the only constant. Everything else is real with an asterisk by it, right? Because it's real, but then later on, it certainly is not real. This chair I'm sitting in is real. This body I'm in is real. But come back in a few decades or whatever it might be, and neither one will be real at all. And then the memory won't even be real a while after that. So if we can be in that space where we're aligned with what is always real, never less real, then it's almost as though it's like enlightenment is poured into the things that we say. Enlightenment is poured into the things that we do. It has such a everything is a blessing in that way at that point when we're able to be in that space and see from that space and share from that space. And so that's what I think that's why it's important, not what we do, but how we do it. Because what we do is we could look at what we do as an empty glass. How we do it is what gets poured into that glass. So it's really it's just a container, what we do, but how we do fills that container with something that hopefully is nourishing and life-giving and delicious as well. So that's my answer to that. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Travis. So harmonizing frequency, music that we are harmonizers, right? So harmony is what we are seeking. Thank you, Travis. Eileen, did you want to say something about how you do is more important than what you do?
Yeah, when you said it, and I've heard that before, actually, a few times, various things with Eckhart. But for me, it's the how is the presence. So the being present, being in the now, like that is more important than whatever it is that you're actually doing. And then I thought of also when Louise was talking that the importance of just being and how much important and healing and freeing, all of that it is than the actual doing. So we talk about trying to get to complete stillness, get to a point of just being, not the doing. And to me, I think of the same exact thing with that also. It makes sense that it would be more important and more productive and more healing, and the ability to heal not just yourself but others by just being. So I thought of.
Thank you, Eileen. So 7 billion human beings are not bringing their beingness into this world. And that is causing the cruelty and cruelty towards whatever violence comes to us or whatever violence is out in the world, like children or animals.
If each person chose to just be.
If only each person just chose to be, the how would take care of itself.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Thank you. This, I don't know if y'all have heard, both in Buddhism and even in Hindu religion, they talk about the golden age. I don't know how many people are familiar with it, where there would be so much harmony and peace that people would not even need like food. They would just, whatever fruit or whatever was growing on the trees, they would eat a little bit of that. And that would be, I almost think like Eckhart kind of says, it's like we wouldn't even have the density of the body that much, right? Because the grossness of the body is because of how we are right now in this age. So he says that, but it would be like a beautiful, like spring everywhere, beauty everywhere. I think the Garden of Eden is something in the Bible that explains almost the same golden age kind of. So we would all be that way. So judging cruelty and judging cruelty towards animals and is introducing another polarity again. We are again introducing negativity in the judgment. So allow it to be as it is. And part of it is knowing how to do, right? How to be. So thank you, Eileen. Kelly, did you want to say something about how you do is more important than what you do? Thank you.
Heck yeah. Wonderfully said, Travis. Really, really appreciate hearing your take on stillness. Beautifully said, Eileen. Just being, it's one of those things, you know. Everything is a process of evolution and refinement. In Qigong, in Bagua, Tai Chi, Xing Yi Chun, you have elements of Qi, Yi, and Shen, or sometimes Jing is thrown in there too. The three treasures refer to how to feel your body, how to feel your mind, and how to feel your spirit, how to feel the energy and the emotion that you put into things. And I love these concepts because they do a great breakdown of what you need to pay attention to feeling wise to come into harmony with your own personal existence. And by coming into harmony with your own personal existence, you understand the difference between being caught in doing versus being. When you can go inside and you can listen to your chi or your blood. In Qigong, blood is synonymous with chi. The two are sort of basically inseparable. Learning how to listen to your blood and the blood flow and movement inside your body helps get you out of your head and into listening to your body. And in that journey, you learn how to listen and feel your head and the mental projections on your body so that you can differentiate between the two. And when your mind is really, really heavy and projecting onto your body and keeping you from being present and listening to your body, along the way, you begin to understand that the feelings you have are manufactured projections of your mind, of your condition, of your programming. And this is where you begin to listen to your Shen, or the spirit, the energy, the subtleties, the music inside the body of the subtleties of the energy moving through you. And this is my point of context for stillness, and understanding how to feel that space of stillness and how to feel the power of my intention, the purity of my intention, the space I'm actually engaged in consciously, and what I am working with, choosing to be aware of, and choosing to be present with as a result of these elements. In the Chinese martial arts, we talk about the 6 harmonies of the body. There are 3 external harmonies and 3 internal harmonies. The external harmonies are the hands and feet, knees and elbows, hips and shoulders, unified as one movement, as one whole unit. And through unifying the movement of the body, you learn how to listen to the mind, the body. You learn how to listen to the blood flow in the body. You learn how to listen to the space your mind is in. And you learn how to listen to the energy that you are putting into a movement. It takes time. It's a practice. But understanding that how you do something, the intention, the feeling that you put into it, whether or not it's judgment, projection, resentment, anger, fear, is so important, so incredibly important. And when you begin to step back into observation, when you give yourself that space, you realize there's this huge other world of, wow, I didn't know that was there. And it's like, okay, I got to like dig through this, and where the heck am I really, you know? From when I used to play the guitar, knowing that even just practicing pentonic scales, just going up and down the fret, just going through the scales, there were moments where 3 hours would go by and I'd be like, what just happened? And I was so present, just so in the moment, that I had no idea, I had no concept of time. And when that started happening to me playing the guitar, I was like, oh, right, this happens to me when I practice Bagua, when I do my Qigong, when I do my standing stake and my circle walking especially. This is one of the reasons why I teach these arts, is because the reality is that we need to be uncomfortable. We need to push ourselves into uncomfortable spaces, and through those uncomfortable spaces to come out on the other side of understanding what that crucible actually gave us. So stillness is profoundly important. It's one of the big reasons why I love music, is because it's the spaces in between the notes that sometimes say so much more. Like a good, bass line, or a good, you got a good drummer giving everybody the foundation of the beat. Or, I grew up with a dad who could play, flute, piano, and sing. And even in church, even though I did not enjoy going to church, I loved singing all the hymns, even though the ones in German that I didn't understand when I was a kid, because it gave me a context for feeling. And understanding what we are feeling when we are doing something is far more important than what we are doing in the external world. That more important than what we are doing outside the world. Not to dismiss any experience or any situation, but understanding what is going on inside and how we are being present or vacating because we're uncomfortable is essential to understand. That's like the big key. That right there is like literally that one sentence. How you do what you do is more important than what you are doing. It is literally like, here you go. Here's your black belt. Here's your basics. Just go and figure out how that fits into everything. My 2 cents.
Thank you, Kelly. So what I would tell this person who posted this message on Facebook is take a few classes with Kelly of Qigong and experience that inner body, that alignment with what is it about being so rooted in our beingness. When Eckhart says, what is rootedness in the beingness, you will get it through Qigong. You get it through yoga and breath work, meditation, but quickest is doing Qigong. Caesar, did you want to talk about how you do is more important than what you do?
Yes, I think everybody had beautiful answers, and I think we're all on the same page. I loved Kelly's 2 cents. I think first and foremost, you have to invite presence into all that you do. Because at the end of the day, I mean, whether it's climbing a mountain, you know, perhaps you're going to reach your destination. To not be able to bring presence along the way doesn't really make the trip enjoyable. I believe in like helping animals. For personally myself, it is, I recognize my inner purpose, as we all do, and we share that inner purpose. And having said that, I see myself in the animals because I happen to be in that line a little bit. And I want to be able, at the end of the day, to make a difference to everyone that I possibly can, every animal I possibly can. And in doing so, if I stay focused and allow presence in, or I should say, if presence allows me in, and I accept, then I'm able to do that on a grander picture, a grander scale, I should say, in that the others around me will also catch on and partake as well. But you have to most definitely, like drinking a glass of water, and you spoke on this before, it's not about drinking the glass of water, it's how you drink the glass of water. When you're brushing your teeth, bring presence into it, be there fully, as Tony says. And I mean, I think everybody touched on it beautifully. And once you are able to do that, root yourself in presence and being, then you are able to be guided by the energy, as Kelly spoke of the chi, and working with that energy. And that will give you, I guess, inspired action to take the next step. It will be shown to you on what to do next. And then there you apply the how. You know, you do it with grace and compassion and 100% presence, indeed. And the stillness that everybody had spoke on is, I believe, the key to that. You know, paying attention to the silence between the noises and so on and so forth. And just, I like to be guided. I like to feel where I should go next. And I just kind of, you know, it's flow. And they spoke on it, you know, regarding harmony. And I fully agree with that 100%. So presence, most definitely, in all that you do. And pay attention to, you know, to where it's going to lead you. And if you know, you can never go wrong following source energy and allow yourself to be guided by that. And you can only do that from a place of stillness and presence.
So what I'm hearing you say, Caesar, like each human is drawn to their own passion. their own, what does consciousness need to do through me? Like I couldn't be an animal rescuer or I couldn't take a whole bunch of foster children and take care of foster children, right? I'm not that kind. But for you, animals seem like it's like in every pore of your cell of your being and spirit, right? So you would be like a perfect person to save animals from cruelty or being whatever is being done, right? Rescuing them, right? And so many people take up domestic animals, right? They may be saving cows or they may be saving horses from being shot down. Until they pass away of natural causes, they raise them in their farms or they keep them in their farms, or it may be different domestic animals, right? So I've heard of that as well, like a lot of people. So each person has their calling. That's another thing about the how you do. It's not like, it doesn't mean that every person on the right now on this Q&A should start saving animals. Every person should start saving children. It's not going to be that way. Each person has their calling, so they are going to do the how pertains to that. The other piece that I see, and this example I'd given like on a couple of weeks back or something, about making the choice that do I send Louise something from Harry and David with sugar and flour, where I've given up sugar and flour, so I really don't believe in consuming sugar and flour? Or do I send something from Vimergy, which I know from medical medium that Vimergy makes their product with a lot of spiritual, like they put in a spiritual essence into their product, right? So I was like, I want them to be touched by that spiritual essence of that high quality product, right? So when we do that, how you make those conscious choices. Like for the past, since 2010, I've been doing non-GMO organic food, right? I am in Texas. Texas does not believe in non-GMO. I'll hear so many conversations where people will say, oh, that's just a hoax. How do you know it's certified organic? How do you know it's certified non-GMO? And they'll get into a long discussion about organic, but I've continued my path of, because like the module that we were watching, module 8 of Conscious Manifestation course, the appreciation is not so much as us saying, oh, farmer, I thank you for making this. It's not like when I'm eating it, I go, oh, farmer, I thank you for making this beautiful cilantro or making this beautiful kale and spinach for me. It's already there inbuilt, like when we are plucking the leaves of the cilantro, the tenderness and the gentleness with which we pluck the leaf, right? The consciousness that flows from me into that. Like my juicer, I make celery juice on and off. There are days that I'm not able to make it, but I've been consistent with the celery juice, but the way I treat the juicer, like the parts of the juicer, take it out, wash it, like I hand wash it, and there are several parts to it. So how you do, if 7 billion human beings could modify their how, right, and allow consciousness to be imbued, this planet would be Eden, the Garden of Eden, right? So Sujata says, wouldn't the same principle of how over what also apply to self-realization, not only for stopping cruelty or for an external change? Wouldn't the same principle of how, there's no what in self-realization, right? Not only for stopping cruelty or for an external, wouldn't the same? Okay, Travis, take over that question, please.
Okay, I'll thank you. So the part that jumps out at me is self-realization. And to me, what self-realization is a readiness. It's a humility. It's opening ourselves up to what might be, and not presuming or acting as if we know what is. It's such a beautiful space, isn't it? You know, to go, you know, maybe I don't know. You know, sometimes I'll find myself in a place where I go, can I say with perfect certainty that I know that anything is out of order right now in this existence? Am I in a position of knowing, of understanding, where I can say that even the smallest little, you know, blade of grass or speck of dust is not in exactly the place that it ought to be? And the answer is I don't know. I don't have that degree of certainty. I don't have that kind of authority. And from there, I'm elated, because just to realize that I can't say with perfect certainty that anything's wrong, that means that maybe, just perhaps, everything is right. And I had a different idea that didn't see it that way. So to me, what self-realization is I don't know how to relate it exactly to how or what per se, but what self-realization is going, who am I? What is? Do I have my own existence apart from life? You know, I understand I'm a small part of life. I'm a little leaf on a big tree. But at the same time, I also can come to realize that I don't have my own existence apart from the tree. I don't have an identity of my own apart from the tree. I am indeed the tree. I am of the tree. I am the tree. I might be a little leaf and I'll blow away in the wind, and that's fine. But the tree is what is. The tree is reality. And that's self-realization, is when somehow the uttermost, or God, or whatever you want to call it, life, it becomes synonymous with who you are. That's the realization. That's the deeper realization, is that life is, you know, that which is that nothing there is, because it, how can I say this? It's not threatened by anything. You know, we can look at most things, even they might be threatened by time, and go, well, it's just a matter of time, and you will face utter annihilation and you will disintegrate. Whether you might be a star, you might be a shrub, you might be a human, what doesn't matter. But time will, you will, all of that will be returned in time. But self-realization is realizing that most subtle self, more subtle than matter, more subtle than a vibrational frequency. That space before before the string is struck, it's perfectly still. To realize that is at the heart of all expressions of life, including ourselves, and that is our timeless essence. That's who we are, that we never won't be. And so when I can say this, I can say that when we come to know, the deeper we come to know the unchanging truth of who we are, the immutable truth of who we are, deep down inside, underneath it all, underneath all the changing, moving parts, at the heart of everything, that axis that moving wheel of life is anchored upon, that moving wheel of who we are is anchored upon, that the fleeting reality of who we are is anchored upon. When we realize ourselves as that, how we do, what we do, and what we do will be influenced by that realization of the truth. And it's amazing the beautiful things that we can come to discover when we surrender to that. that can flow through us, what can flow through us, and the way that it flows through us. It can be just as much a surprise and just as much a treat to us as it would be to anybody else. And I think that that's really exciting and fun and kind of wondrous. It brings it renews our zest and zeal for life when we can see that even what we do and how we do it can flow through us in a way that is beyond our understanding, and we can marvel at it as if we weren't the one doing it. So that's my answer to that question. That's the best I've got for that.
My whole vibrational frequency, like I can feel the heat, Travis. It like rose when he started speaking, right? I can feel my, like the energy in my hand.
Well,
Thank you.
Glad.
Beautiful.
That's good.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, when you were saying, is there anything wrong? Every blade of grass, is there anything wrong? I know Eckhart sometimes jokes that a lot of people, I think it happens with people that don't believe in God. They go, oh, if it was I don't know if y'all have heard of this, Eckhart talking about it. I'm paraphrasing here. He says, people say, oh, if God were really a good God, then why would he have all this suffering? Right? He would just like almost like wave a wand and make everything right. Right? Then how can God be so cruel that he allows all this cruelty to happen? But the depth of the unknowable that you were talking about, once we touch that depth, every little thing that is happening in this cosmos is understandable. Like we know why it is happening, right? Whether it is the forest fires, whether it's a hurricane, whether it's a tornado, whether it is a avalanche that is happening, or a volcano erupting and causing traffic. I think air traffic stopped in Europe 4 years, 2014 or something, in year 2014, I think.
Well, I think that, you know, it goes back to that first question about resentment. That's what we do, is we resent life. We resent, you know, you can call it God too. I know that's not everybody's preferred term, and I understand why, but it's funny because we separate ourselves from existence and we go, you know, existence would be, the entirety of everything that ever is, was, and shall be would be a little bit better if it aligned with this idea I possess, right? That's so funny, to make ourselves superior to existence. It comes at a hefty price, because now we've separated ourselves from the whole of life. And so that's not that how could that feel good? So
and then in that unity, the other thing he says in this talk, Transcendence Through Stillness, he goes, what is free will? Who is choosing? Are you choosing? If consciousness is flowing through you, isn't consciousness choosing? Why are you calling it free will? It's not your free will, right? So beautiful. That man, oh my God. I could like touch his feet and just stay at his feet for the rest of eternity, for the wisdom, the simplicity with which he explains for your 20th century, 21st century human beings, the way he explains this perennial philosophy, which maybe Vedanta has it, and Tao Te Ching has it, maybe the Zen masters had it, but it's the perennial philosophy. If people would understand that, where is free will? If consciousness is choosing through us, right? Consciousness is flowing and it is choosing. The self-realization is consciousness being aware of itself, right? Thank you. Luis, did you want to talk about what Sujata's question? Wouldn't the same principle of how over what also apply to self-realization?
I actually don't really have, I feel like Travis just like said it all really. And then what you said too, just, I feel like it just all is tied perfectly. And so I resonated with it. And a lot of what I was going to say was bits and pieces of that. So I think I'm good.
Thank you, Louise. Let me look at the time. Okay. Caesar, did you want to say something about Sujata's question?
Sure.
From another perspective?
Yeah. So how would you apply the how to the what, being self-realization? I think it's everybody's human nature in existence to seek what this is about and who you really are. So to apply the how, to me, would suggest some logic in that you must seek in order to find what you're looking for. So depending on, life is the ultimate teacher. At least it's been in my experience as to figuring out the essence of who I am. And like Travis was saying, you can then realize the oneness with all that is. Once you have an understanding of yourself, you can then relate and know another, know the tree, instead of just facts about it, not having been rooted in presence along the way, or rooted in being, as Eckhart says. Because until you fully understand that, you could never truly know another, or you could never truly know the tree. You could only know facts about the tree, age, color, type, and so on. But I think, the journey of a million miles, as they say, begins with the step you are taking now. And so along the path you are traveling for this self-realization and how you go about it really is important that you, you're going to have it within you to seek that. I think it's everybody's human nature, as said. It's like the holy grail of life, to find out what this is all about and who are you really. But at some stage of the game in life, you start seeking and you start looking at past experiences and understanding where life has led you. And then you start questioning why and how. And then you start applying the information that you were born with the information. And I think in time it has been clouded through the conditioned thinking of the mind and what we're told. And I think it just gets clouded over time. So I think a lot has to do with unlearning who you thought you were to find out who you really are and what you're about. And once you have a little bit of an understanding, I think the desire to go further and know more is a driving force that allows you to open your eyes to what is. And there you will find the answers in presence along the way. So at the end of the day, you have a destination per se. You can arrive at your destination bouncing off the walls, zigging and zagging, 2 steps back, 1 step forward, or you can kind of go through gracefully. And that is all up to you. And that's in regards to free will, like you said. So it just depends on the individual and what you seek, how hard you seek. And your soul will always guide you to that. And if you pay attention to it, and as Kelly says, pay attention to the emotion, to the feelings, you will find there all the answers that you're looking for. Because I believe all that knowledge is within you. So it's just a matter of finding that still space within, and is being aware that you are consciousness. You're an expression of life, experiencing itself. Consciousness, as you said, experiencing itself. So that's it.
You know, when you were saying it's human nature, what came to mind is Eckhart saying it's the evolutionary impulse of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
The expansion, right? There's a push. It almost says like there's a push notification in the form of all these emotions that Kelly was talking about, that you're feeling sad. It's showing you're not aligned, right? Are you feeling joy? Yes. Exuberant joy, I'm completely aligned. The moment it comes to, oh, there's some low-lying discontent, some unease, so paying attention to the inner body. And I strongly, strongly recommend if people can message Kelly. And what's your email address, Kelly? wakingdao@gmail.com. Wakingdao and I'll put it in the, maybe you can put it in the chat wherever the live is going on. Try the Qigong, because that was my first experience of inner body, is Kim Ing's Chi Flow DVD. Perfect, thank you. And then, so that is the evolutionary impulse of the universe that Eckhart talks about as well, that human nature is to expand. The self-realization is inbuilt in each human being. And as you were saying about traveling without any, Sadhguru has a very beautiful analogy. He says, when you have an engine, car engine, do you want the parts, if they're well oiled, they move around very smoothly. Do you want to move smoothly through life? And that's the picture I got of the car, that if it's well oiled, right? You want to put the best engine oil in there so the engine parts move very smoothly and your car runs smooth, right? So what about this engine? We focus on everything else except for this engine, right? So thank you for that. Kelly, did you want to talk about what Sujata has asked? Thank you.
Sure. Short answer is yes. Understanding how you are doing what you're doing, the intention that you're putting into something, is self-realization in its simplest form. And the thing about deepening your connection with your personal process of self-realization, digging through all the layers of dense energy, dense vibration, emotional patterns, fear and judgment, projections, understanding those mental projections. When we get to a person gets to a space of feeling their connection, feeling, understanding, and knowing their higher self, their Atma, their Buddha nature, their Christ consciousness, whatever words work to define it for you, you understand that free will, while yes, consciousness is experiencing consciousness through you, that there is also an aspect of active participation. And you can, through understanding your alignment and your process, actively participate in the expression of spirit and the divine through your process. And this is not something that's talked about very often. This is something that is understood through those spaces of stillness and through deepening your own understanding of observation and your own journey of processing. This is why understanding how you do something is so incredibly important, because it is the spaces between those moments of projection, like the notes on a piano, in a song, however you want to put it. Those spaces of quiet, those spaces of stillness will always reflect back at you how you are participating, whether or not you are unconscious, whether or not you are in the process of becoming conscious, or whether or not you are conscious and present and actively participating in your own expression. We are here in a third dimensional reality with 5 senses. Big air quotes there, big air quotes there, massive air quotes there. We have multidimensional aspects to ourselves that are the subtleties of our everyday existence. This is why being present is so important. This is why learning how to feel, how to have the courage to feel everything that you are feeling, no matter what, and to stay present with everything that you are feeling and everything that you are understanding is so important. This is how you understand how you are doing what you are doing instead of being caught in just doing something. Understanding how you are doing what you are doing, how you are feeling your reality, and your level of participation in your reality is essential to understanding how to be present. And this, in my understanding and in my perception of this question, is exactly the crux, the equation of understanding how this applies to self-realization. Understanding how to feel everything in your body instead of your head, because where is your heart? It's in your body. Understanding the difference between being cut off energetically, being cut off emotionally, feeling the impact of your projections on your body is a key element. It's been a key element for me in terms of understanding the realities of projection and the realities of being present and emotionally responsible and actually communicating with myself instead of cutting myself off and choosing not to look at that and going over here to all the shiny squirrely stuff. So understanding how you do what you do and why you do things how you do them is really, really important. So there is an active level of discernment of being in alignment where you understand through observation that there is an actual space of active participation that parallels the mental projection of the illusion of free will. Just saying. Just
Thank you,
saying.
Kelly. Thank you, Kelly. I think the other aspect of doing it that way, we're almost done, Eileen. I'm going to wrap it up. When you were saying the inhabiting the body, right? How is that's what leads to self-realization, knowing of your emotions, like giving it spaciousness, right? What Eckhart calls giving it complete spaciousness.
Yep.
Spaciousness of presence is more important. That is part of the self-realization kind of. So thank you. Eileen, did you want to say something about this real quick and wrap it up?
No, I don't really have anything to add anyway, but I have an issue going on right here. So
okay, you're more than welcome to drop if you are okay. Disconnect. Thank you. No more questions, right? On the.
No, I just checked. There's nothing there.
Perfect. Thank you. You're incredible. Appreciate the help. I kind of lost my train of thought, what I was going to say, which is a good thing, right? When then that means there is nothing to say anymore. So we're at an hour and a half. Real quick, one of the things that Eckhart says is in Conscious Manifestation course, he talks about obstacles during manifestation, right? We come across obstacles in our daily life. So I want y'all to talk about what are the obstacles, or how do we deal with obstacles? And if it can be quick, we do it quickly in 10, 15 minutes, and then we can disperse for the night. So I know every human being comes across challenges, and how do you deal with the challenge? And what is the challenge? So Luis, did you want to, you're like a PhD level student at obstacles, Luis. So you have to expound on obstacles. Go ahead. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I have, 3 little ones, so that can create a lot of obstacles in life because they don't always cooperate with everything that's going on. And, and I'm raising them at this age that I don't, my body isn't as energetic as it used to be. And so there are some factors and obstacles. And because, I also have my granddaughter here, so because there's so many personalities and, appointments and this and that, there's a lot of things that come up. And I think the main thing that has helped me is to view anything that comes up as something to learn or something to stop me. Like now, as you were saying, that means that there's nothing more to say on this. And so it's like a little trigger, a little like, each time something comes up, it's like a reminder that there's something to learn from this. There's, each time that I go into presence, when I have that, I realize that the problem really isn't that big, or the obstacle isn't that, it doesn't even exist anymore most of the time. And so I think one of the things is just being aware that there's something to gain from each obstacle in a positive way. And also being grateful for that, because it's also an opportunity to grow. Because I feel that even in the last, I would say 4 weeks, I've had a lot of things come up, like the guy that my husband was commuting with had COVID. So then he had to be quarantined for 14 days, right at the time Christmas was hitting. And so then I had absolutely no help. So I had the kids 24/7. So it was like just going from one appointment to the next. And it's just being grateful the whole time for that just made me feel like I just grew so much. And being able to see things in a totally different perspective, and not allowing it to take over me. Because, and that's something I even talk to the kids about constantly, is that, there's always going to be annoyances. There's always going to be, because that's how life is. And if we just allow it to take over us, or allow those things to annoy us, or to not give that other person whatever it is that they need, then we kind of cut everything off, all the learning, all the growth, everything off. And that's just part of life. I think it's just part of, understanding, and almost getting excited. I almost get excited when I have obstacles or things come up, because I'm like, yes, I can grow from this, or I can practice, presence, or I can practice this, or this is a great opportunity for me to give in this situation, then it doesn't really feel like there's that many obstacles after all. When you're talking to someone, like I'll talk to someone and they're like, oh my God, your life is crazy, or how do you do that? Or I wouldn't be able to raise, that many kids, or do this or do that. But it's it just, everything flows. Nothing feels like it's a problem. And it's from being rooted in my presence. And so things flow, things happen, and the learning and the growth happen all along the way.
Perfect. Thank you, Louise. And we are absolutely filled with gratitude that you attend every Facebook Q&A, even though you're not able to make it in person, virtually, you are there online supporting us. So I am totally grateful with all this going on in your life, that you're still present and available, selflessly giving, and you actually put in like input into feedback into the group whenever the panel is going through. So thankful, Louise. Like you are incredibly amazing, like so beautiful. And then even for group she's always there. Like she doesn't speak, but she's always there, like constantly for group meditation. She's always there. So you know that human being came and held the frequency. Like I feed with Travis, right? He held the frequency, and that was their purpose on that day. That's what that connection is there with you. What I was going to say, and this ties into your responses, when Kelly was saying about how you do and inhabiting the body, what I was going to say is that allows you to, what in India it's called nishkarm, neutrality of your introducing the action with no polarity, if that makes sense. Because the obstacle is coming because we did the negative polarity. I mean, we did the positive polarity, so the negative we create. And this is the most beautiful sentence Eckhart has written, that the positive already contains the unmanifested negative. If people can understand that word, that the positive already contains the unmanifested negative, so the negative is about to happen. Are you ready for it? Right? And it all goes, it ties back into this whole session where everybody was talking about each and every person, Eileen to Kelly to Caesar to Louise to Travis, we're talking about being deeply rooted in their inner beingness, right? That is the nishkarm. That is the that deeply rooted in that unknowable, in that 0 point, is what introduces the nishkarm or neutrality. I know Gracie told me there were certain responses that I gave on the Facebook group, and she reminded me how neutral I was in my response. And you have to think of that, right? Like you have to, it's not even a thinking, it's an experience. Like, no, it's coming from the inner space, and it's only going to be good for whatever you're doing, right? It may be chaos, there's something going on, and the kids like pushed away all the, what do you call it? The, on the end caps, there was a display and they hit the display and everything fell all over the floor. And now you're picking it up and putting it back, right? But then there are other people, then you see how humanity rises, right? Other people come help you put it back, right? Or the store manager will say, no, it's okay. It's okay for all that. We take care of it. You go ahead and do your groceries, right? So thank you for that. So the obstacle is never an obstacle. It's just something to accept, teach us surrender, like teach us, like, you know, Eckhart talks about 1,000 prostrations. We do prostration too. In India, we are taught to touch the feet of our elders, right? I feel that already trains you to be like at that level, you're half like touching their feet. Your body is below their body, right? Their face, your head down and touching their feet. So you're already humble. And the training comes in like as a 2-year-old child, 3-year-old child. You're already trained. Be humble, be humble, be humble, right? So thank you. Caesar, you want to talk about this? Obstacles and
I couldn't have really said it any better than what Musa just said. I mean, like word for word, as I was thinking it, she was literally saying it. And like the obstacles have great learning opportunities. I mean, that's a blessing. Like, what is this supposed to teach me? It's almost like a procrastination or a hiccup in the way of where you're supposed to be. Like as if it was part of the grid filling in of what am I out of alignment with? If it's, due to procrastination or obstacle, as you called it, there's a reason. And you have to welcome that, surrender to it. And I get excited about what it's trying to teach you because we know better that there is a lesson within it. If it is an obstacle, like Tony says, problems are just illusions. So I fully agree. I mean, Lois, you really hit it on the head. I mean, you were literally speaking what I was thinking. I mean, it was awesome. And I'm
That's awesome.
So it is, obstacles are definitely lessons. It just, I couldn't have said it any better. But that's it. I mean, surrender to what is and, yield to overcome, as they say.
thank you. The profound wisdom of yielding to rather than opposing the flow of life.
Absolutely.
Right? Thank you, Caesar. Thank you, Louise. Kelly, did you want to talk about this? Obstacles and why do they arise and how did we co-create the other polarity? We co-created it, right? The obstacle? You agree?
There's
right?
a few ways to look at this. Yes, co-creation, most definitely. The positive always has the unborn negative in it because you cannot have one end of the polarity without the other. However, the more you align with your heart, the more your ego will challenge you and co-create energetically into your life those things to test your resolve to stay aligned. So this is a really, really important thing to understand. So the more you do your work, the more you go inside, the more your ego and your shadow will create and draw to you energetically those things to challenge you, to test your resolve, to test your courage, and to test the strength of your faith in your alignment and your choice to love yourself. My 2 cents.
Thank you, Kelly. And the only way to not co-create the next challenge is the present moment, the action, the right action taking place in the present moment.
Yes and no. Yes, absolutely. The right action, the right feeling with alignment, with stillness, with presence, with being present and emotionally responsible. However, there's also the surrender to the inevitable. In order to burn out the imbalance and the polarity, in order to burn out the pattern, we have to accept that things will just happen because we've seen them, we've felt them, we've not wanted to look at them, and we know that our patterns will co-create these events with ourselves so that we can heal and move beyond the limited patterns of polarity.
Perfect. Thank you, Kelly. Travis, you want to wrap this up?
Sure. Well, it's so nice to be back with everyone. This is just so amazingly powerful for me, and if Louise just blew Caesar's mind, Kelly just blew mine with what he was saying, because it was everything that I wanted to speak to in a way more refined than I think I understand and am able to. But because what I wanted to talk about is how obstacles don't always come from outside of ourselves. Sometimes they come from within us. And I've been really becoming more aware, especially in these last maybe 3 or 4 weeks, more than ever, of this inner resistance. And I don't think I can say it better than Kelly just did, but how that egoic state, you know, these challenges are created, and honestly, I feel like my head is kind of spinning from everything I've just heard. I feel like I had a big meal I have to digest and assimilate everything. So I don't even
Take a
know.
nap.
Yeah, how to share from here, other than I'm very grateful to it's just so fun to see how we all you know, grow into working together as kind of like one body or something. Is really fun, like fun to be a part of. But yeah, you know, I think that all I could do is try to sum up and paraphrase, you know, that these obstacles, they're ultimately here to serve us. They're indicators. We can feel into them, and if we feel a little discomfort, that's that area that we're going to get to grow into feeling more at peace and more at ease, and in a way that works better with everything, that jives well with everything a little bit better. So it's not a problem, it's not a bad thing. And yeah, I think when we're growing into you know, really into our deeper selves, our higher selves, that yeah, our ego's gonna pull out all the stops, and kind of really test us, and that's not bad either. That's ultimately going to help us, and in the end, we're going to be grateful for every last little nuance, every last little detail, because it was absolutely necessary for our awakening. And so it's really a gift, and it's just a wonderful thing to be all of us growing into that space together, where we're becoming more and more able to see just the utter benevolence, just the endless benevolence that is life. And the gift that all of this is, that we're all sharing in, and the more we realize all that, the better we'll be able to offer ourselves to life, and share in that, and realize all that together. So just very grateful for all of it. Yeah. So
Beautiful wisdom. What I wanted to say is, and it almost is like life flows. Like if we follow the obstacle, it's like we know that it's a redirection, like it's a boulder in the high current river. It's just moving us a little bit to the left or to the right, and that we are meant to move to the right. I'll give all of you an example. In 2016, Parker actually asked me to come over to Longmont. She said, why don't you start meetups right in Dallas? So she wanted me to see, like, how does Eckhart has a prescribed way of doing meetups. Like you're supposed to come in, do a meditation, watch one of his videos, maybe discuss very little discussion of his video, then do meditation and disperse, right? So when traveled, I saw how she held the meetup, and I didn't do anything about it, right? Like, because I have a corporate America job, my 8 to 5 goes in the corporate America job, leave alone, like sometimes I work weekends and late hours, so because it's an IT job. So in 2017, we got bought by, I wouldn't take the name of the company. We got bought by a company, a large Fortune 50 company. And then what I started doing there is introducing, what I understood is corporate America does not understand meditation, right? Like you cannot bring the word meditation into corporate America. So I asked my manager, could we have like something like emotional intelligence? Like, can I improve the emotional intelligence of the group, or make that my career goal for that year? And he said, no, like he didn't understand what I was trying to say, right? So I was like, okay, then that means I'm not supposed to be doing this. So because I was going to wrap how she did the meetup into the emotional intelligence, right? The other thing tied to that is the fact that my mother always told me that I'm not photogenic. So I have this fear of pictures and videos, right? So I had never been in front of the camera, nor do I ever take pictures or anything of that sort. So I moved forward, like another year goes by. In 2018, I see some mindfulness starting in this company, right? So then I start to, what happened was, yeah, my manager may have said, no, don't get interested in emotional intelligence or bringing up the emotional intelligence of the group. But then our senior management changed, and I was able to tell my senior manager, can we do mindfulness in this business unit, right? Not only like in the subset of the business unit, for the whole business unit. So I introduced mindfulness to the business unit, and I used to use the same format, like do meditation, just do 20 minutes of meditation, get people together and play the secret, what I follow in the sacred acoustics meditation, right, Louise, during our group meditation. So I would do that. And then started all these, they had me talking about Eckhart. And I used to like post on their social media and everything about Eckhart's teachings, right? So that grew. I went in front of general managers and I would talk to them video to video, like present to the company mindfulness and talk, right? So it freed me up. So just see each obstacle, one person saying no actually leads to a bigger opening. Like if you get stuck on the why did my manager and how, again, back to the judgment, right? Holding resentment about them and saying they're not supporting me. And then I can start off anything, right? I'm brown skin, immigrant, all those thoughts can start, right? But with Eckhart's teachings, those thoughts don't, like you always surrender, like what Louise is saying, right? You surrender to the next moment. And it has taught me from 2012 till now. I mean, my job has taught me the meaning of surrender, this profound wisdom of yielding to rather than opposing the flow of life. I mean, I have it into the cell of into my spirit, like it's seared. Like, how do you surrender? Like nobody even, just like what Louise was saying, right? It didn't even take me a fraction of a second to say, I completely forgot my train of thought, but I caught it by the time Louise was speaking, right? It's like surrender, move to the next thing. So because the general manager talked to me over video, right? I got so used to being on video, then I started doing videos with Parker, and that's on my YouTube channel. Started doing, I would never ever have been on video with Parker, never have thought of it if I wouldn't have done mindfulness at that corporation, right? And become so comfortable. And now I'm so comfortable with video and being with all of you. So every obstacle is just moving us in the right direction. I don't know where all this would go. I do know in 2019, I picked Christina from that, the larger Eckhart Tolle official group, a community in presence. I asked her to moderate. So this is the flow, right? How you do matters. Look at Christina. She started doing moderation for our group. In the middle, she asked me, and she does not actually speak English. He always uses Google Translate to translate. She asked me, hey, I want to start a Spanish speaking group. Should I start it? And I supported her, right? Go ahead, start it. She now has about 20,000 members. She started with whatever, 1 or 2 or 3 people a year or 2 back. And now she has her own meditation group. She supports her own members. And it's like the flow. And I'm not saying it's me. I'm saying, look how each person is blooming, right? And I want this, and that was the intention at the end of the year 2020, in 2021, peace, harmony, and abundance. When I say abundance for all, pure, pristine abundance for all, the power is within you, each one of you, to bring that abundance. And 2021 will be the year that lifts off, right? Bring that abundance, bring it on, and we'll make it a great next few years. And it's just gonna like take off, okay? So honor and a privilege for all of you here and all of you out there, and many blessings. It was a beautiful night, exuberant joy. I cannot, no indescribable exuberant joy to see all of you. Take care.
Likewise.
Bye.
No
Good night.
justified resentments. That kept coming to mind. Bye, everybody.
Bye.